The first mistake is believing the truth always arrives before the consequences. By the time you recognize which one came first, the game has already chosen you. The message appeared on Ethan Carter's encrypted phone at exactly 4:17 a.m., lighting up the darkness of his apartment with a single sentence that made the silence feel heavier than the rain tapping against the windows. You were never hunting the Black Jackal. The Black Jackal has been hunting you. He stared at the screen for several seconds, waiting for another notification, another clue, another explanation. None came. Just the faint reflection of his own tired eyes staring back from the glass. 24 hours earlier, everything had seemed different. He had believed the operation was finally reaching its conclusion. Months of chasing anonymous tips, encrypted files, disappearing witnesses, and carefully constructed lies had narrowed the investigation to one abandoned financial office outside Baltimore. Every piece of evidence pointed there. Every calculation suggested that whoever called themselves the Black Jackal had finally made a mistake. Instead, Ethan found an empty conference room, a single black chess piece resting on the polished table, and security footage that had somehow erased itself exactly 3 minutes before his arrival. Olivia Brooks had examined every server inside the building without finding a trace of external interference. That impossible detail bothered her more than the missing suspect. Systems don't erase themselves, she had quietly said while reviewing corrupted data on her laptop. Someone wanted us to believe they do. Ethan remembered the certainty in her voice. Olivia never exaggerated. If something looked impossible, it usually meant someone had spent years making it appear that way. Back at headquarters, Marcus Reed insisted they continue following Daniel Hayes, a respected technology investor whose public image seemed almost painfully ordinary. Community charities, education grants, interviews about innovation. Nothing connected him to international intelligence networks or secret organizations. Yet every digital breadcrumb somehow curved back toward companies he quietly controlled through layers of shell corporations. The evidence was frustratingly incomplete, like reading every fifth page of a novel and trying to understand the ending. Then Sophia Collins arrived unexpectedly. She wasn't scheduled to speak with investigators again for another week, but she carried a worn leather notebook she claimed had been left inside her mailbox before sunrise. She refused to explain who delivered it because she never saw anyone. She only noticed the notebook after hearing the front gate gently close. Inside were dozens of handwritten dates. Some had already passed. Others pointed to events that had quietly happened without making national headlines. A corporate merger. A courthouse evacuation, an executive resignation. Every prediction had become reality within days. On the final page, only one sentence appeared beneath tomorrow's date. Find the man who never casts a shadow. Ethan closed the notebook slowly, feeling an unfamiliar chill despite the warm office lights. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Someone wasn't simply predicting their investigation anymore. Someone was writing it. Ethan barely slept before sunrise. The notebook remained on his kitchen table exactly where he had left it, its weathered leather cover somehow commanding more attention than the dozens of classified reports stacked beside it. He had spent nearly 3 hours comparing every handwritten date against federal records, financial databases, archived newspapers, and internal intelligence briefings. Sophia had been right. Every prediction matched a real event. Not one of them had been dramatic enough to dominate national headlines, yet each had quietly shifted the balance of influence somewhere behind closed doors. It was as though someone understood history before history understood itself. By 8 o'clock that morning, Ethan was already walking into headquarters carrying the notebook inside a plain evidence folder. Olivia looked up from 3 computer monitors glowing with streams of encrypted data. She immediately noticed the exhaustion on his face.
"You found something," she said.
Ethan placed the notebook beside her keyboard without answering.
She
flipped through the pages carefully, her expression changing with every date she verified against her databases. "This is impossible," she whispered after several minutes.
"No."
"It is deliberate," Ethan replied. "Someone wanted us to find this." Olivia enlarged a high-resolution scan of the final page. Under extreme magnification, she noticed tiny impressions beneath the visible handwriting, marks left by previous pages that had once rested on top of it. She adjusted the lighting filters again, and suddenly faint letters appeared beneath the surface. They formed half of a street address in Georgetown. The remaining numbers were incomplete, but it was enough for Olivia to search municipal property records. Within seconds, only one building matched the pattern. It had officially been vacant for almost 11 years. Marcus entered the operations room carrying fresh coffee and a folder of surveillance reports. He listened quietly while Olivia explained the discovery, then frowned at the property photograph displayed on the large screen. That building was purchased 6 months ago through another holding company connected to Daniel Hayes, he said. Ethan folded his arms. Another coincidence? Marcus shook his head. We have run out of coincidences. Less than an hour later, the three of them stood across the street watching the old brick building beneath a cloudy Washington sky. It looked abandoned. Dust coated the windows. The front entrance was secured with heavy chains that appeared untouched for years. Yet a delivery truck stopped briefly at the rear alley, unloaded 2 sealed containers, and departed less than 4 minutes later. Nobody entered through the front door. Nobody exited the building. Ethan watched every movement through binoculars. Either we are looking at an empty warehouse, he quietly said, or we are looking at something designed to appear empty. Olivia continued monitoring nearby wireless networks from a tablet inside their unmarked vehicle. Suddenly, one unidentified signal appeared for exactly 7 seconds before disappearing again. She immediately isolated the transmission. It contained no words, no images, no obvious encryption key. Only a sequence of black and white squares resembling the beginning of a digital puzzle. Ethan recognized the pattern instantly. It was another chessboard. Only this time, one square was highlighted in red. Olivia overlaid the pattern onto a satellite map of the city. Her breathing slowed as the highlighted square aligned perfectly with one location neither of them had expected. It was not the warehouse they had been watching. It was the headquarters where they had spent the last 6 months investigating the Black Jackal. Marcus did not say another word as he turned the vehicle around and headed back toward headquarters. Nobody inside the car questioned the decision. The atmosphere had shifted from cautious investigation to quiet urgency. Ethan kept staring at the digital chessboard on Olivia's tablet, trying to understand why someone would deliberately point them toward the very building that housed their own task force. If this was another distraction, it was the most elaborate one yet. If it was genuine, then every assumption they had built over the past 6 months deserved to be questioned. The morning traffic flowed normally across the city, commuters carrying coffee cups and briefcases without realizing that somewhere beneath the ordinary rhythm of another workday, someone seemed capable of moving people and information like pieces across a carefully planned board. Ethan found himself remembering the anonymous message that had arrived before dawn. You were never hunting the Black Jackal. The Black Jackal has been hunting you. For the first time, those words no longer sounded like a threat. They sounded like an explanation. Headquarters appeared exactly as it always had. Security officers greeted employees. Delivery vans entered the loading dock. Analysts hurried through the lobby balancing laptops and paper folders. Nothing looked unusual. That unsettled Ethan even more. Olivia connected her tablet to an isolated monitoring device before they entered the building. The mysterious wireless signal had disappeared again, leaving only the image of the highlighted square behind. She enlarged every pixel, searching for hidden metadata, but the file contained almost nothing except one timestamp that matched the exact second Ethan had received the anonymous message. Someone synchronized both events, she quietly observed. They wanted us to connect them. Marcus requested a complete access log for every secured floor during the previous 48 hours. The report arrived within minutes. Thousands of employees had entered and exited as expected. Yet one access credential appeared repeatedly, without belonging to any active employee profile. The identification number had been officially retired almost 9 years earlier after the death of a senior intelligence architect named Nathaniel Cross. Ethan studied the photograph attached to the archived personnel file. A distinguished man in his late 60s smiled calmly into the camera, wearing the same security badge that now seemed to be opening restricted doors across the building. Dead people do not badge into federal offices. Marcus muttered. Olivia searched deeper, through archived correspondence connected across. Most files had been sealed decades earlier, but one internal memorandum remained visible because it had been accidentally duplicated inside a budgeting database. The subject line consisted of only 3 words. Project Jackal Initiative. Ethan felt every conversation from the past several days suddenly rearrange itself inside his mind. The abandoned office. Daniel Hayes. The notebook. The chessboard. None of them had been isolated clues. They were invitations leading towards something much older than their investigation. Before anyone could continue, every monitor inside the operations center flickered once. The room fell silent as dozens of screens simultaneously displayed a simple black background with elegant white lettering. There were no flashing warnings, no dramatic graphics, only one sentence centered perfectly across every display. Welcome back. You finally found the first move. The words remained on every monitor for less than 5 seconds before the screens returned to normal, yet nobody inside the operations center spoke immediately. Analysts looked around the room, quietly wondering whether they had witnessed a system malfunction or something far more deliberate. Olivia was already typing commands across her keyboard faster than Ethan had ever seen before. She isolated every network log generated during the interruption, expecting to find traces of an intrusion, but every diagnostic returned the same impossible conclusion. No unauthorized access had occurred. It was as though the system itself had willingly displayed the message. That cannot happen, Olivia finally whispered. Ethan glanced toward Marcus, who was already instructing the building security team to preserve every electronic record from the previous hour. The requests moved through official channels within minutes, yet Ethan could not escape the uncomfortable feeling that whoever orchestrated this moment had anticipated every response long before they acted. Marcus received confirmation that all exterior cameras remained operational during the incident. Nothing unusual appeared outside the building. Employees arrived. Couriers delivered packages. Visitors passed through security exactly as expected. Ordinary life continued without interruption. That normality disturbed Ethan more than chaos would have. Olivia suddenly paused while reviewing archived maintenance records connected to Nathaniel Cross. One forgotten document listed a secure storage room beneath the oldest section of headquarters, a room scheduled for permanent closure nearly a decade earlier after a renovation project. According to the digital archive, the room no longer officially existed. Yet its environmental monitoring sensors were still transmitting temperature readings every 15 minutes. If the room was removed from service, Olivia said quietly, nothing should still be reporting data. Marcus immediately requested building blueprints. The newest architectural plans showed only reinforced foundation beneath that section. Ethan asked for older versions instead. After comparing construction records spanning 30 years, one difference finally appeared. Before the renovation, a narrow service corridor connected the forgotten storage room to an elevator that no longer appeared on public floor plans. Someone had intentionally erased an entire section of the building, without physically removing it. Less than 20 minutes later, the 3 of them stood inside an unused records archive on the lower level. Dust-covered old shelving units filled with paper files from another era. Ethan followed measurements from the original blueprint until he stopped beside what appeared to be an ordinary concrete wall. The dimensions did not match. According to the plans, there should have been another hallway beyond it. Marcus examined the surface carefully before noticing faint scratches near the floor where heavy objects had been moved years earlier. Olivia aimed a portable scanning device against the concrete. Hidden behind the wall was a hollow space extending nearly 40 feet. The corridor is still there, she said. Someone simply concealed the entrance. Before anyone could decide what to do next, Ethan noticed something resting quietly on a nearby metal shelf. It was a brand new white envelope sitting alone among decades of forgotten records. No dust covered its surface. His name was written across the front in neat black handwriting. There were no stamps, no official markings, and no indication of when it had arrived. Ethan slowly opened the envelope and unfolded a single sheet of paper. Only one sentence had been printed in the center. If you still believe Daniel Hayes is the player, then you are looking at the wrong side of the board. Ethan read the sentence 3 more times before handing the paper to Olivia. She studied the ink, the paper stock, even the faint indentation left by whatever printer had produced it, but there was nothing remarkable about it except its timing. Someone had known exactly where they would stand and exactly when they would arrive. Marcus quietly searched the surrounding shelves for additional envelopes or hidden devices. There were none. The forgotten archive looked untouched for years, yet the message waiting for Ethan felt as though it had been placed there only moments earlier. Olivia slipped the paper into a protective evidence sleeve. "If Daniel Hayes is not the player," she said thoughtfully, "then someone wants us to believe he is only another piece." Ethan looked back toward the concealed
wall.
The comparison felt increasingly accurate. Every clue they had uncovered had directed their attention somewhere else, almost as though an unseen strategist was teaching them how to think instead of simply hiding the truth. Marcus contacted the facilities division and quietly requested historical renovation files connected to the lower levels of headquarters. Minutes later, an unexpected answer arrived. The contractor responsible for sealing the old corridor no longer existed. The company had dissolved only 3 weeks after completing the renovation nearly a decade earlier. Every executive connected to the project had retired early or transferred into unrelated industries. None had maintained public records afterward. Olivia frowned as she traced ownership documents through archived business filings. "These companies disappear the same way," she observed. "New names, new addresses, different directors, but the financial signatures remain almost identical." Ethan recognized the pattern from previous investigations involving shell corporations. Someone had spent years constructing perfectly ordinary exits instead of dramatic disappearances. That required patience, resources, and extraordinary discipline. Before they could continue, Sophia called Ethan directly. Her voice remained calm, but something about her measured breathing immediately caught his attention. She explained that another envelope had appeared outside her home less than 15 minutes earlier. This time it contained no notebook, only a photograph. Ethan asked her not to touch anything else until they arrived. 20 minutes later, they sat around Sophia's dining table examining the image beneath bright afternoon light. The photograph showed an elegant fundraising gala held almost 12 years earlier. Hundreds of guests filled the ballroom. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. Then Olivia quietly enlarged one corner of the image using her tablet. Standing near a grand staircase were 3 people engaged in conversation: Nathaniel Cross, Daniel Hayes, and a much younger Marcus Reed. Silence settled across the room. Marcus leaned closer, studying the image with visible confusion. "I have never attended this event," he said immediately. Ethan believed him. The surprise on Marcus's face appeared genuine. Olivia checked the embedded metadata preserved within the original photograph. The timestamp, camera model, and archival registry all matched authentic records from the charity foundation that hosted the gala. Nothing suggested the image had been digitally altered. Sophia slowly turned the photograph over. On the back, written in the same precise handwriting they had already encountered twice that day, appeared another short sentence: "Memory can be edited more easily than history." Ethan felt the investigation shift once again. Until now, they had been questioning evidence. For the first time, they had to consider something far more unsettling. Someone might also be manipulating the memories of the people searching for the truth. Marcus insisted on reviewing every personnel record connected to his own career before anyone drew conclusions from the photograph. By early evening, the operations center had transformed into a maze of archived service files, forgotten organizational charts, and dusty personnel directories dating back more than 15 years. Ethan quietly watched Marcus work through each document with remarkable patience. If his memory had truly been altered, there would be no obvious place to begin searching for what had been removed. Olivia approached the problem differently. Instead of examining people, she examined patterns. She mapped every appearance of Nathaniel Cross, Daniel Hayes, and the mysterious Project Jackal initiative across thousands of archived records. Most references had been deleted or heavily restricted, but deletion itself began revealing a pattern. Entire months of administrative history contained unexplained gaps. Financial approvals existed without proposals. Employee transfers appeared without supervisors. Buildings changed ownership without recorded transactions. Individually, they looked like ordinary filing errors. Together, they resembled carefully arranged absences. Ethan remembered something Nathaniel Cross had once written in the duplicated memorandum. The most valuable secret is not hidden information. It is information everyone believes never existed. Olivia froze as she compared the sentence against another archived document recovered from an obsolete backup server. The wording matched perfectly. Cross wrote both documents, she said, which means he expected someone to find them years later. Marcus finally looked up from the stack of personnel folders covering the conference table. I found something strange, he admitted. He pointed toward a performance evaluation completed 11 years earlier. His supervisor praised his leadership during a multi-agency planning exercise that Marcus could not remember attending. The report listed commendations from 6 different departments. Every signature was authentic. Every attendance record supported the event. Yet Marcus remembered spending that entire month on a completely different assignment in Colorado. Ethan examined airline receipts preserved inside archived expense reports. According to federal records, Marcus had never traveled to Colorado during that period. The documents consistently placed him in Washington. Neither explanation could simultaneously be true. Sophia quietly broke the silence. What if nobody changed your memory? She asked. Everyone looked toward her. What if someone changed the history surrounding you instead? Olivia immediately began testing the possibility. She searched newspaper archives, public event calendars, and private collections donated to university libraries. Within 20 minutes, she uncovered 3 independent photographs from the same charity gala. Every image showed Nathaniel Cross. Every image showed Daniel Hayes. None of them showed Marcus Reed standing beside them. Yet the original photograph inside the anonymous envelope still clearly placed Marcus there. It was the only version that differed. Ethan leaned back slowly, feeling another assumption collapse beneath him. Someone was not rewriting everything. They were selectively replacing only the evidence necessary to guide the investigation in a specific direction. Before anyone could continue discussing the discovery, Olivia's computer emitted a soft notification. A previously unknown file had appeared inside the isolated forensic workstation that had never been connected to the internet since that morning. No transfer logs existed. No external device had been attached. The file name consisted of only 2 words. Opening move. Ethan exchanged a cautious glance with Marcus before Olivia slowly opened the file. The screen displayed a detailed architectural blueprint of headquarters, including the concealed corridor beneath the building. One location pulsed softly in blue. Beneath the blueprint appeared a single instruction. Arrive alone before sunrise if you want the second move. Ethan did not answer immediately after reading the instruction on Olivia's screen. Arrive alone before sunrise if you want the second move. The words were carefully chosen. They did not threaten him. They did not promise danger. They simply assumed he would come. That confidence bothered him more than any warning could have. Marcus folded his arms and studied the blueprint in silence. Nobody goes anywhere alone, he finally said. That is not even open for discussion. Ethan understood the reasoning, but another thought kept returning to him. Every message had anticipated their decisions. Every attempt to investigate through official channels had uncovered only another carefully prepared clue. Whoever stood behind this elaborate game appeared to know how investigators thought before they acted. Olivia enlarged the blueprint again, isolating the blue marker hidden beneath headquarters. The location is directly beyond the concealed corridor, she explained. According to structural records, there should be another chamber behind the wall that never appears on modern construction plans. Marcus immediately requested a thermal scan of the lower foundation using maintenance equipment already inside the building. Less than 30 minutes later, the results arrived. Behind the concealed corridor, one enclosed space remained several degrees warmer than the surrounding concrete despite having no documented power supply or heating system. Somebody had maintained that room for years without leaving obvious traces. Ethan quietly walked toward the operations center window, overlooking the city. The evening skyline reflected across the glass, while thousands of office lights slowly illuminated one by one. Somewhere out there, someone had predicted every step of their investigation with extraordinary precision. The question was no longer, whether they were being watched. The real question was why someone wanted them to continue. Olivia interrupted his thoughts. I found another anomaly. She displayed archived utility records dating back almost 12 years. Every month, a tiny amount of electricity had been billed to equipment supposedly removed during the renovation. The usage was so small that accountants had never questioned it. Yet the pattern had continued without interruption for more than a decade. Marcus leaned closer. Enough to power surveillance equipment. Olivia nodded slowly. Or a secure server. Or something even simpler. Ethan looked again at the forgotten chamber on the blueprint. Suddenly, he realized every clue they had discovered had required almost no effort to find once they reached the correct place. Nothing had been hidden beyond recovery. Everything had been waiting. As midnight approached, headquarters gradually emptied until only essential personnel remained. Marcus reluctantly agreed to prepare a controlled operation before sunrise despite objecting to the message's demand. Additional teams would remain nearby without entering the lower level unless Ethan requested assistance. It was the closest compromise any of them would accept. Shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning, Ethan returned alone to the records archive beneath headquarters. The building felt unusually quiet. Even the familiar hum of ventilation seemed softer underground. He stopped beside the concealed wall where they had discovered the first envelope. This time something new waited there. A small brass key rested neatly on the metal shelf beside another folded piece of paper. Ethan unfolded the note. There was only one sentence. The door was never locked. You only needed permission to see it. Almost instinctively, he examined the concrete wall again. Under the dim overhead lights, he noticed something none of them had seen before. A narrow vertical seam extended from floor to ceiling, perfectly aligned with the surrounding surface. He inserted the brass key into what appeared to be solid concrete. A hidden mechanism responded with a quiet metallic click. The wall shifted less than an inch, revealing a narrow passage beyond. As cool air drifted through the opening, Ethan noticed a single light already glowing in the darkness ahead, as though someone had been expecting him all along. The passage stretched farther than Ethan expected, its narrow walls lined with old brick instead of modern concrete. Every few feet, recessed ceiling lights cast a soft glow across the corridor, revealing a place that had clearly been maintained despite existing outside every official blueprint. There was no dust on the floor, no broken fixtures, and no signs of neglect. Whoever had preserved this hidden space understood that invisibility depended more on being forgotten than abandoned. Ethan moved slowly, listening to the quiet echo of his footsteps. Behind him, the concealed entrance sealed itself with another faint metallic click. He paused for only a moment before continuing forward. The single light he had seen from the opening now led him toward an elegant wooden door unlike anything else beneath headquarters. There were no security keypads, no biometric scanners, and no identification plates. Instead, a polished brass plaque displayed only one word: observe. Ethan carefully turned the handle. The door opened without resistance. Inside waited a room that resembled a private library more than a secure intelligence facility. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves surrounded the walls. Framed maps covered one side of the room. An antique globe rested beside a large oak desk positioned beneath a warm reading lamp. Everything appeared perfectly organized, as though someone had stepped away only moments earlier. Yet the room was empty. Ethan approached the desk cautiously. Resting at its center was an old chessboard arranged in the middle of an unfinished game. Black pieces controlled most of the board while white retained only a handful of carefully positioned moves. Beside the board sat a leather journal opened to a handwritten page. The ink looked fresh. Ethan read the first line. If you are reading this, then you finally stopped chasing people and started following decisions. Before he could continue, a quiet tone echoed from somewhere within the room. Olivia's encrypted communication device vibrated inside his jacket. Ethan, she whispered through the secure channel. Do not touch anything yet. I found something. Her voice carried unusual urgency. She explained that while monitoring environmental sensors above ground, she had discovered the hidden chamber had never existed as an isolated room. It formed the center of an extensive network extending beneath several neighboring government buildings. Decades of renovation projects had gradually concealed the original connections without removing them. Ethan slowly turned toward another wall where an enormous framed city map hung beneath protective glass. Thin red lines connected dozens of familiar landmarks across Washington. Museums, financial institutions, universities, federal offices, libraries. None of the locations seemed random anymore. They resembled pieces arranged across an invisible board. Marcus joined the secure communication line from the operations center. "We traced the maintenance records farther back," he reported. "Nathaniel Cross did not create this network. He inherited it." Ethan stared at the map while another realization settled into place. Every investigation over the past several months had intersected one of these locations without anyone recognizing the larger pattern. The clues had never been isolated incidents. They had always belonged to the same design. Ethan returned his attention to the journal. Beneath the opening sentence appeared another carefully written paragraph. "The greatest mistake investigators make is assuming they are searching for a hidden person. People retire. People disappear. Ideas simply find new caretakers." At the bottom of the page rested a small sealed envelope marked with today's date. Ethan carefully opened it. Inside was a single photograph showing Olivia, Marcus, Sophia, and himself entering headquarters earlier that morning. The picture had been taken from somewhere inside the building before any of them even knew the hidden corridor existed. Written beneath the photograph, in the same precise handwriting they had encountered from the beginning, appeared one final sentence. "Welcome to the game you have already been playing for years." For several long seconds, Ethan simply stared at the photograph resting in his hand. The image had captured all four of them entering headquarters that morning from an angle that should not have existed on any official security camera. Whoever had taken it had been standing inside the building before the investigation reached the hidden corridor, quietly observing every step without interfering. Olivia broke the silence through the encrypted channel. "Ethan, I finally matched the camera perspective." Her voice remained calm, but he recognized the excitement beneath it. The photograph was not taken from a hallway or an office. It was taken from a maintenance observation room that disappeared from architectural records almost 20 years ago. Ethan slowly looked around the library. Nothing inside felt abandoned anymore. Every object appeared intentionally placed. Every book rested perfectly aligned. Even the unfinished chess match seemed less like decoration and more like a lesson waiting to be understood. He carefully turned another page of the leather journal. Instead of names or operational details, he found short observations written over many years. People reveal themselves more through predictable choices than hidden secrets. Institutions protect routines before they protect truth. Information becomes invisible when everyone believes someone else has already verified it. Ethan realized he was not reading the diary of a criminal. He was reading the notebook of an observer who had spent decades studying how organizations behaved. Marcus interrupted his thoughts. "Facilities just confirmed something unusual. We located the maintenance room Olivia mentioned, but according to every access log, nobody has entered it for 17 years. Olivia answered almost immediately. "The electronic records say that. The physical dust patterns do not." She had dispatched a forensic technician to inspect the room without disturbing anything. The preliminary photographs showed faint shoe impressions leading toward a narrow ventilation opening that connected directly to the hidden library. Someone had been moving through forgotten spaces, while official security monitored only the visible hallways above. Ethan examined the city map once again. The red lines connecting government buildings suddenly reminded him of transit routes rather than surveillance targets. He traced one path from headquarters to the old Georgetown warehouse, then another toward the charity ballroom where Nathaniel Cross and Daniel Hayes had once appeared together. Every location matched a place their investigation had already touched. It felt less like coincidence with every passing minute. Then his attention settled on something he had overlooked before. In the lower right corner of the map, nearly hidden beneath the frame, someone had handwritten 4 dates. 3 had already passed. Each matched a milestone in their investigation. The 4th date was tomorrow. No location accompanied it. Only one word: assembly. Ethan photographed the corner of the map and transmitted it securely to Olivia. Seconds later, she searched every database available to her. No government meeting, conference, charity event, or corporate gathering matched the date. Public calendars showed nothing unusual. Yet another encrypted notification suddenly appeared on her isolated workstation. This time it contained only a calendar invitation with no sender information. The meeting location simply read to be revealed upon arrival. Marcus quietly exhaled. "Whoever this is," he said, "they are not responding to our investigation anymore. They are scheduling it." Ethan closed the journal carefully and looked once more at the unfinished chessboard before leaving the room. Just as he reached the doorway, he noticed one final detail that had escaped him earlier. A single white chess piece stood alone on a separate shelf across the room. Unlike every other piece on the board, it carried a tiny engraved name along its base. Ethan Carter. The engraved chess piece remained in Ethan's hand as he slowly walked back through the hidden passage. It felt surprisingly ordinary, carved from smooth white stone with no markings except his name. That simplicity unsettled him. Whoever had placed it there wanted him to understand one thing above all else. He had never been an outside observer. Somewhere along the way, he had become part of the design. The concealed door quietly closed behind him as he returned to the abandoned records archive. Marcus and Olivia were already waiting just beyond the hidden entrance, both studying his expression before saying a single word. Ethan silently placed the chess piece onto the conference table upstairs beside the photograph, the journal images, and the growing collection of handwritten notes. Nobody touched it. Olivia slowly circled the table, comparing every clue again from the beginning. "There is something we have been assuming that may not be true," she finally said. Ethan looked toward her. "We keep asking who the Black Jackal is." She paused before continuing. "What if that question was designed to waste our time?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. Olivia opened a digital diagram showing every confirmed appearance connected to the investigation. The anonymous messages. Nathaniel Cross. Daniel Hayes. The hidden corridor. The forgotten library. The observation room. The shell corporations. None of them require the existence of a single mastermind. "Every clue points toward continuity instead of identity," she explained. "This could be a role instead of a person." Ethan immediately remembered the sentence from the journal. People retire. People disappear. Ideas simply find new caretakers. Suddenly, the entire investigation shifted into focus. They had been searching for one elusive individual while overlooking the possibility that different people had been protecting the same system across generations. Sophia quietly entered the operations room carrying another discovery. During the previous hour, she had contacted the charity foundation responsible for the gala photograph. An elderly archivist remembered Nathaniel Cross personally. According to his recollection, Cross never introduced himself using a title. Whenever people asked what he did for a living, he always smiled and gave exactly the same answer. "I preserve the next move." Olivia searched every recovered document again. The phrase appeared nowhere else, yet somehow it perfectly matched everything they had uncovered. Ethan returned his attention to the city map. Tomorrow's mysterious entry still occupied the lower corner. Assembly. No address.
No explanation.
Only certainty. Then another notification appeared on Olivia's isolated workstation. Unlike every previous message, this one included a live countdown beginning at exactly 12 hours. Attached beneath the timer was a seating chart for an elegant conference room. Four chairs were highlighted in blue. Each carried a familiar name. Ethan Carter, Olivia Brooks, Marcus Reed, Sophia Collins. A fifth chair remained empty. There was no name beneath it. Only a small black jackal emblem engraved into the center of the seat. Marcus quietly folded his arms. "This is not an invitation," he said. Ethan nodded slowly.
No.
He continued studying the screen as the countdown advanced 1 second at a time. "It is attendance being confirmed." At that exact moment, the building lights flickered once before stabilizing again. Olivia immediately checked every system log. There had been no interruption to the electrical grid. Yet one additional file had silently appeared inside the secure workstation. There was no sender, no timestamp, and no digital signature. The file name consisted of only 3 words. The successor list. Olivia hesitated for only a fraction of a second before opening the newly delivered file. Everyone expected pages of classified names, or another carefully staged puzzle. Instead, the screen displayed a clean white background with a single sentence at the top. Every successor believes they are discovering the truth when they are actually being evaluated by it. Beneath the sentence appeared a chronological list beginning more than 40 years earlier. Each entry contained only 3 elements:
A date.
a first name, a final status. Most of the names meant nothing to Ethan, but several immediately stood out. Nathaniel Cross appeared halfway down the list with the status completed. Daniel Hayes appeared several years later with the status active. Ethan Carter appeared at the very bottom. His status did not read active or completed. It simply read pending. The room remained completely silent. Marcus slowly leaned closer to the monitor, as though reading the word again might somehow change it. Sophia quietly folded her arms, her attention fixed on the screen without saying anything. Olivia immediately searched every available personnel database, public archive, and federal registry for the remaining names. Nearly every individual had served influential roles inside government agencies, research institutions, financial organizations, or strategic planning groups before quietly disappearing from public attention. None had criminal records. None had attracted media attention. They had simply stepped away from visible careers at remarkably similar moments in their lives. Ethan noticed another detail. Every transition occurred almost exactly every 7 years. The pattern repeated with remarkable consistency across 4 decades. Olivia highlighted the intervals on a digital timeline. "This is structured," she said softly. "Not random. Someone has been preparing replacements on a schedule." Marcus stared at Daniel Hayes' entry. If Hayes is still active, why reveal his name to us now? Ethan thought back to every message, every photograph, every carefully positioned clue. Because whoever is guiding us wants us to stop focusing on him. Olivia nodded slowly. Or because his role is almost finished. Before anyone could continue, another notification quietly appeared beneath the existing file. This time there was no countdown and no attachment. Only a question filled the center of the screen. Which decision first convinced you that you were acting independently? Ethan felt an unexpected chill. It was not asking for information. It was asking for reflection. The distinction mattered. He mentally replayed every important choice since receiving the anonymous message before dawn. Visiting the abandoned warehouse. Examining the notebook. Following the hidden corridor. Opening the journal. Every step had felt voluntary. Yet every destination had already been waiting for him. Marcus suddenly looked toward Ethan.
What?
If refusing to continue is the real test. Olivia considered the possibility before quietly shaking her head. Then they would have predicted that too. Ethan understood exactly what she meant. Every path they imagined had probably already been anticipated. The challenge was no longer choosing between right and wrong. It was recognizing whether genuine choice still existed. At that moment, Sophia's phone vibrated gently on the conference table. She glanced at the screen, her expression changing almost imperceptibly. "I just received a calendar confirmation," she said. "For tomorrow." Olivia immediately checked her own phone. A matching confirmation had arrived. Marcus reached into his jacket and found the same notification waiting for him. Ethan's phone vibrated last. None of the messages contained a sender. None listed an address. Each simply displayed the same sentence beneath the meeting time. "Your seat has been reserved." Morning arrived beneath a gray Washington sky that seemed determined to keep every shadow in place. None of them spoke much during the drive. Ethan sat in the passenger seat watching familiar streets pass by, realizing how differently the city looked after discovering the hidden network beneath it. Every government building, every historic monument, every quiet office now felt connected by invisible threads that had existed long before he became aware of them. Olivia continued monitoring every device they carried. The mysterious calendar invitation remained unchanged. No address had appeared. No additional instructions followed. Yet the countdown reached 0 exactly as they crossed the Arlington Memorial Bridge. At that precise moment, every phone inside the vehicle vibrated once. A new message appeared simultaneously on all 4 screens. Proceed to Union Station. Platform 12. Arrival in 20 minutes. Marcus looked toward Ethan without saying anything. Neither of them questioned how someone knew their exact location. They simply adjusted course. Union Station bustled with ordinary commuters carrying backpacks, rolling suitcases, and paper coffee cups. Nothing suggested anything unusual was about to happen. Ethan quietly scanned the crowd while Olivia compared faces against public databases. She found no obvious surveillance team, no coordinated movement, no recognizable pattern. Yet the feeling of being expected remained stronger than ever. Platform 12 contained only a handful of passengers waiting beside a regional train scheduled to depart north. An elderly station employee approached them before they could ask a single question. Without introducing himself, he handed Ethan a cream-colored envelope and smiled politely. "You are exactly on time," he said before calmly walking away toward another platform. Marcus immediately turned to follow him, but within seconds the employee disappeared into the morning crowd without leaving any obvious trail. Ethan opened the envelope. Inside rested 4 identical boarding passes. None displayed passenger names. Instead, each carried a chess symbol where identification information should have been. Beneath the passes lay another folded note. The meeting has never been about the destination. It has always been about who chooses to arrive together. Olivia quietly examined the tickets. Every barcode scanned as authentic through the railroad database, yet no payment records existed. The train itself appeared completely ordinary according to public schedules. Ethan looked toward the waiting passengers. Families chatted quietly. Business travelers reviewed presentations on their tablets. College students listened to music through headphones. Nobody seemed connected to the strange invitation that had drawn the 4 of them there. Then Sophia gently touched Ethan's arm and pointed farther down the platform. Standing near the final passenger car was Daniel Hayes. He wore a dark overcoat and carried nothing except a leather briefcase. He did not appear surprised to see them. Instead, he offered a small, respectful nod, the kind exchanged between professionals who already understood why they had come. Ethan started toward him, but Daniel slowly raised one hand, silently asking him to remain where he was. The train doors opened with a soft mechanical chime. Daniel stepped aboard without hesitation. Just before the doors closed, he placed a single white envelope onto an empty seat beside the window where everyone on the platform could clearly see it. As the train slowly began pulling away, Daniel looked directly at Ethan one final time. There was no fear in his expression.
No urgency.
Only quiet certainty. Ethan watched until the final passenger car disappeared around the curve. Seconds later, Olivia's phone emitted another notification. A live satellite image filled the screen. The train they had just watched leave was highlighted in blue. Beneath it appeared one final sentence. "The caretaker has departed. The board now awaits its next move." The platform slowly returned to its ordinary rhythm after the train disappeared beyond the curve, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. Ethan remained motionless, his attention fixed on the empty tracks where Daniel Hayes had vanished from sight. The satellite image still glowed on Olivia's phone, quietly tracking the train as it moved farther north. Nobody spoke until Marcus finally broke the silence. If Hayes was the caretaker, he said, then he was never the destination. Ethan nodded almost absent-mindedly. Every clue from the past several days suddenly aligned into a pattern that felt impossible to ignore. The messages had never encouraged them to capture anyone. They had only encouraged them to understand something larger than any individual. Olivia carefully reviewed every digital artifact one final time. The successor list, the journal, the chessboard, the hidden library, the preserved corridor, the boarding passes. Every piece pointed toward continuity instead of conquest. It was never about power.
It was about stewardship.
Sophia quietly unfolded the extra boarding pass still resting inside the envelope. She noticed tiny embossed lettering hidden beneath the printed chess symbol. Olivia examined it under magnification and revealed a phrase almost invisible to the naked eye. Every generation inherits the board before realizing it has already entered the game. Ethan slowly closed his eyes as another realization settled over him. Nathaniel Cross had never attempted to conceal the truth forever. Daniel Hayes had not been escaping justice. They had both been preparing someone else to discover what they themselves had once inherited. Marcus looked toward Ethan. "Do you think this organization still exists?" Ethan answered after a long pause. "I do not think it is an organization anymore." He looked across the crowded station where thousands of strangers continued moving through their ordinary routines. "I think it became an idea a long time ago." Olivia's tablet emitted one final notification. Unlike every previous message, this one arrived through no detectable network connection. The screen displayed a single archived video file labeled Orientation. Ethan opened it. The recording showed an elderly Nathaniel Cross sitting alone inside the same hidden library they had discovered beneath headquarters. He looked directly into the camera with calm, patient eyes. "If you are watching this," he began, "then you have already proven the first principle. You continued asking questions after the obvious answers became comfortable." He smiled gently before continuing. "Many people will spend their lives searching for the Black Jackal. They will imagine a mysterious leader, a criminal network, or a hidden empire.
Let them.
The symbol was never designed to identify a person. It exists to protect a responsibility." Cross leaned slightly closer. "Every generation chooses one caretaker. Not to rule, not to command, only to ensure that knowledge survives those who temporarily possess it. If you reach this recording, then someone believed you deserved the opportunity to refuse." The video ended without another word. Silence settled over the four of them. Ethan slowly looked down at the white chess piece still resting in his hand. For the first time, he turned it over completely. Hidden beneath the felt base was another tiny engraving that none of them had previously noticed. It contained only a date.
Tomorrow.
As the station clock quietly advanced to the next minute, Ethan's phone vibrated once. There was no message this time. Only a digital calendar notification that had somehow replaced every existing appointment. Its title contained 6 simple words. First meeting of the new caretaker.